Hi there. Hi, friends. Ooh, okay. So last week, this time I got a coughing bout and we had to hang up. So I'm hopeful that this time around I'm better equipped. So I've got a hot tea going on. I just had my honey infused with thyme and garlic to coat my throat. I've been nebulizing before that. So hopefully that will get me through an hour of talking or so. Okay, so I want to talk about progesterone today because we did talk about progesterone last week, but then we got so many questions still that we're still getting so many questions, which is great. And so I want to really help you navigate through everything so that you are comfortable, you understand what progesterone is all about, what are the symptoms, when to apply it, how to apply it, do you need to get tested before applying and getting progesterone or not? And then so post your questions as well. I've got some topics I want to cover today, like where to apply, when to apply, do you get tested, what are the symptoms of progesterone? But I would love to make it an open session. So post your questions in there and I'll get to them. All right. So why don't we start off with symptoms of low progesterone? And as I'm reading them, and you'll be surprised how long the list is, make a post, just let us know which ones are you experience. And really start tuning into more like experiencing it ever since you turn 40, 45, maybe 50. Like you did not have certain issues before, and now you do. And so let's take a look at what they are. So the list is pretty long, but like the first thing that really starts happening for a lot of women is that the minute you turn 45, you start experiencing difference in your sleep, meaning falling asleep is not so easy, or you wake up at 2-3 o'clock in the morning and you just cannot go back to sleep, right? So and then given that that's not a regular, it's pretty irregular because you know yourself and you know you've been always a really good sleeper. So what's going on here, right? And then you start doing melatonin and this herb and that herb, and we kind of like, become dependent on all these different supplements, yet another supplement. And sometimes they don't even work. That's the worst thing. So that's like the first thing that starts happening when then progesterone starts dropping. The second thing that might start happening is that you start feeling a lot more anxiety, moodiness, and sort of feeling very unsettled as compared to before. So, progesterone works on the same receptors in the brain as GABA, right? And some of you may know GABA is an amino acid that is given a lot of times to people who have episodes of anxiety. And so it works on the same parts of the brain. So when progesterone declines, your brain is just not getting as much as work on the GABA receptors, and hence the sense of anxiety can set in. Another very common symptom is hot flashes and night sweats, right? So who here is experiencing those? And they don't necessarily have to be just only progesterone dropping. They can be due to a lot of other reasons. And I've done a lot of work on hot flashes. So if you just look up our website, hormonesbalance.com, our blog on hormones, on hot flashes, and there's a lot of reasons why you have hot flashes, but low progesterone is just one of them. Could be other things, blood sugar balance, low estrogen. The other thing that happens when progesterone starts dropping is like if you're still having a cycle, instead of having a full cycle of 28 days or whatever your cycle, right, from first period to the next period, you suddenly experience that like, oh wait, I'm getting my period way earlier. Like now my period is coming after 26 days when my regular cycle used to be 28, right? What's going on? And so your luteal phase is getting shorter. So from ovulation to your period, and that's because that's predominantly progesterone. And so it's not unusual to have a shorter cycle. My cycle got completely messed up. That's another story. But when I had my cycle, let's say until last year, it was going down to about 24, 25 days. And there's some things you can do to increase it. And I will talk about some of the nutrients as well we can do. Another one is, so basically when your progesterone starts dropping, all I can say to you is welcome to perimenopause. It's already started. It's nothing to combat. It's nothing to fight against. I hate words like I see sometimes in social media posts when people say how to combat menopause. It's like saying, how do you combat being a woman? You don't. It's just the most normal, natural progression. We can do a lot of things to lower inflammation in the body so that you sail through your perimenopause into your menopause, and you sail through your menopause and not go through a major storm. Okay. So, having said that, a lot of changes start happening around perimenopause. And so don't freak out if suddenly your PMS, for example, is worse than ever before. Your cycles become highly irregular, or maybe you're having spotting in the middle of your cycle, right? So you see like this brown, discharge on your panties in the middle of your cycle, right? You'd be like, oh, I should be ovulating. Why am I having a brown spot? So that's typically low progesterone. And period irregularities that go hand in hand with perimenopause, excuse me, sip of hot water, hot tea. Mm-hmm. So symptoms of low progesterone can manifest in a form of irregularity with periods. Irritability and nervousness, right? So that's kind of connected. Fertility, of course, starts dropping. But, I've worked when I was in private practice. I'm not anymore, but when I was, there was a number of women, when we corrected progesterone, they got pregnant, even though fertility was never my focus area. It was for like a couple of weeks, and then I realized it's a crazy town. And I just couldn't deal with with that kind of demographic. But correcting that subfertility, fertility can be connected to your progesterone as well. Let's see what else. Low moods and depression, especially around your ovulation and just before your period. Mood swings, weight gain, especially cellulite, especially around your thighs and your buttocks. Fluid retention, so like your fingers and toes swell up. You can't take your shoes off. Taking off a ring is really difficult, right? And you see, this interesting thing is that estrogen and progesterone play together, right? And they're like, if you think about it, like we made a post on social media just to explain this to you guys, like how estrogen is there to help the grass grow at a lawn, and progesterone is the mower that comes at the end of the month and mows things down, and that's when you get your period. So water retention is the same way as the interplay between estrogen and progesterone, where estrogen helps you with retaining water because we need that, and progesterone is literally coming in and helping you shed that water, right? So acts as a diuretic, as a natural, gentle diuretic. So when you're having a lot of fluid retention, it could be some other reasons too, but it could be that your estrogen is too high and your progesterone is way too low. And can you have low estrogen, low progesterone too, and still experience this? Yes, because estrogen drops and progesterone drops, but the problem is that progesterone drops way faster in perimenopause and after 45 as compared to estrogen. So even though you might be low on both, estrogen can still be so-called dominant. Brain fog, that's another thing a lot of women complain. Sagging skin, low thyroid, pain, inflammation, osteoporosis, excessive menstruation, hypersensitivity, including to light, migraine headaches before cycles, that's a big one, decreased libido, and decreased HDL, the good cholesterol. Okay, so as I'm reading those, let me just take a look at if we have any comments coming in. Vertigo is not particularly connected to menopause or perimenopause. Hot and cold at night, sweating, Julie saying, anxiety, Stacy, using progesterone. I don't have, Adrienne is saying, I'm using progesterone cream and I don't have any hot flashes anymore. I haven't had a period in months. I'm 49. Susan is saying, got migraines and hot flashes until next period arrives. Yeah. So, okay. So basically, as you can see, there's a lot of different symptoms, right? That can be connected to progesterone. And, the thing, the very sad thing in conventional medicine is that a lot of times progesterone is not given to women, including after hysterectomies, whether partial or full, and women are put at the best on estrogen and not on progesterone. And the crazy thing about this whole thing is that Western medicine, OBGYN, conventionally trained OBGYNs will tell you that progesterone is necessary for women to get pregnant, right? And as the word implies, progesterone, progestation, it is a forward fertility hormone, and that's very true. But it completely dismisses the whole other side of the science, which says, progesterone is also helping us keeping us calm, helping us sleep, gives us strong bones. That's another thing I didn't mention the symptoms. Osteoporosis, like I think has been hammered into our heads through pop culture, medicine, and marketing, that calcium is the most important mineral when it comes to bone health. And that is just such a, sliver of the story, because you need calcium, you need magnesium, K2, vitamin K2, D3, but you also need estrogen to help you build a scaffolding in the bones. And then progesterone helps to bring those minerals into the bones. And so it's really quite fascinating how the multiple, roles that progesterone has beyond just helping you become pregnant, which is in our case, like the progesterone doses that we are going to be talking about, you guys. I mean, those are doses for keeping you healthy and happy. Those are not doses so that you get pregnant. You should be on much higher progesterone if you're really deficient, if you want to get pregnant. And yet it can change our lives, right? Using it. So that's a beautiful thing about that. Okay, so why don't I go over to the next one, which is actually, let me discuss something that we got a lot of questions about, and I just want to clarify that. Two things. Do you need to get tested before applying progesterone? And the second kind of part to this is progesterone safe to use. Why do I talk about progesterone on calls like this? Why do we sell in our stores without a prescription? So let me address maybe the second question first, and that is, I'm gonna have a drink. So nice, like there's something about putting something warming in your body that just opens everything up and relaxes things. So when it comes to progesterone, unlike estrogen, progesterone is a really benign hormone, and it's not, from the research that we know, from the anecdotal and experiential usage of progesterone, we know that it is a safe hormone to use. And that's the reason why I have no qualms about selling that in our store, about using it myself and promoting that to our community, especially because it can be such a life-changing hormone. When I say benign and safe, I want to contrast that to estrogen or DHEA, and which you will never see sold in our store. And the reason why I don't want to sell it is because estrogen, and let's start off with DHEA. DHEA gets converted to testosterone. Testosterone then gets converted to all the three different estrogens. And the problem is that if you are not metabolizing that estrogen very well, then there is a chance of giving yourself even more estrogen dominance, which can lead then to more serious issues, including DNA damage and contribution towards breast cancers, all the estrogenic cancers actually, which is breast, uterine, ovarian, thyroid. Those are lung cancer in non-smokers. It can be an estrogenic, and prostate cancer, by the way, in men too. So for that reason, we don't sell estrogen, right? And so then you might ask, hey, what about women who had progesterone receptor positive breast cancer? Is it safe for them to use progesterone? So the first thing I'll say, for liability reasons, you need to talk to your doctor about that. And I do recommend a functional colleges, not a traditional colleges, to ask that question. But what you need to understand, and this is not whether you should or should not be buying, it's just the matter of fact is that progesterone receptors get overstimulated so that they take up all that progesterone, and then the cancer also becomes progesterone receptor positive when there is a big activity of estrogen. So estrogen is actually what fuels and overactivates, overstimulates the progesterone receptors. So that's really important to understand that, having a progesterone receptor positive cancer means that your estrogen is overactive, right? And so when I say overactive, it's not that you're having too much of estrogen, it's just how you're breaking down those estrogens to clean and dirty estrogens makes all the difference, right? And this is where we, where we are talking so much about liver health and gut health, because that's where the split of those clean versus dirty estrogen is happening. And that's so important. That's why if you have my books, the liver and gut, and blood sugar balance, those are the three tenets really of good hormonal health. So anyway, so that's where I stand with progesterone. When it comes to testing, so let me just say this. When it comes to testing, I always encourage people to test. I think, test, the truth is in the numbers. Testing, how you test makes a big difference. So forget blood for steroid hormones such as cortisol, DHEA, testosterone, progesterone, cortisol is completely useless. Estrogen it will not show you anything. When I was in private practice, you guys, I would have women walking in with miscarriages, history of breast cancers, the list just goes on, right? And like screaming estrogen dominance. And she shows me the labs that the doctor did based on blood, and they will say, my doc says everything is okay. It's all in my head. I should just reduce calories and run more, right? Kind of a thing. And it's just so, it used to drive me crazy. And I'm like, you clearly have estrogen dominance, so let's just work on it. And back then, when I was in practice, there was not a lot of other options. So the next better one is saliva. My favorite and the golden standard in functional medicine is Dutch. So urine testing for hormones, which will show you not only your estrogen levels, but most importantly, how you're breaking down those estrogens. That's really important to understand. It will also show you progesterone. So, how important is it? I mean, if you have the money, if you have $500 to spend on a urine test, plus also a practitioner who can help you interpret the results, do it. Of course, do it. If you don't have the budget, and you are like, I turned 45, I can't sleep, I got hot flashes, my period is so much shorter, right? I mean, those are like pretty clear symptoms, and adding progesterone is not gonna hurt you. Okay. So, so I hope I've answered that part of the question about the safety and the testing. Let's, Jen, do we have any questions about those, like related to this part, what I talked about so far? Not other questions. We can just keep other questions for later. Okay, so let's move on to where do you apply your progesterone, okay? And this is really kind of interesting that depending on where you apply, you can have a different reaction, a different speed of absorption and the efficacy of progesterone working, on your body, which is really quite fascinating. So I'm just using our progesterone cream, and for us, 4 pumps gives you 25 milligrams of progesterone. So I've actually, we can talk about dosing later. I've actually doubled my dose. I went up to 50 milligrams just recently, and I actually feel the difference, and I feel like I'm sleeping way, way better. So I feel like I needed that much more. Because I want to just show you, I'm just doing 1 pump. And if you apply progesterone to all the places where you have no fat, right? So just like skin that is it's got very limited fat. So that will be obviously your wrist. Everybody knows about the wrist, right? But after a while, cells get kind of insensitive they develop, like a resistance to a cream. So it's good for you to rotate your spots. So one thing you could do is really trial and error, and depends on what works best for you. What I do is I do half the dose on those thin. So let's call it quick acting, right? So those are quick acting, so that where there's no fat, as you could imagine, the progesterone is going to get into your lymphatic system really quickly. So when you apply it, you can apply it on the chest, like what I did just now. You can put it on the neck. You can put it in the back of your neck. You can put it on top of your feet. You can put it under your feet, right? All of those spots are wonderful. And it's what we call give you quick release. If you are, one of those that you suddenly wake up in the middle of the night and it's like, then it might be, I also recommend for you to try applying it where you have fatty tissue, okay? And then it's gonna be basically a lot slower because of the fat tissue, and it has to get through that fat tissue in order to get to the lymphatic system. it's going to give you a slow release effect, right? So that will be, you can apply it on your breast, you can apply it on your inner thighs, you can apply it if you have, like, I don't have a lot of fat on my arms, so that will make no much difference, but you can apply it at the back of your arm here. You can apply it, of course, in your tummy. You can apply it on your butt. One place that you are wasting your progesterone is applying it on a vagina, because vagina does not, and your uterus do not have progesterone receptors. So if that's a different kind of application. If you're having, dryness down there, if you're having incontinence, then a much better solution would be applying a cream that contains DHEA. We love our partner, Dr. Anna Kabaka, with Jova, her product. And so it contains DHEA, but you can also try estriol. So because there's estrogen receptors there. Okay, so that's that will be, I think, do we have any questions about applications? Let me just take a quick look on Instagram. How often do you apply it and what points in the cycle? Okay, so let's talk about that. So that's the when, okay? Yes. So I personally apply it at night, but I just started doing that in the mornings too, and that works great. So let me just tell you this. At night, if you apply it at night, whether it's a slow or fast method, it's going to help you sleep better. It's going to calm you down. It's going to probably keep you asleep and give you a better quality sleep. If you apply it during the day, it might help you tremendously if you have things like bad moods, anxiety, right? And just feeling very unsettled. So, but if you're working on things like, oh, I want to increase my good cholesterol, I want to help with, I want to help bones, I want to, just overall have a sense of calmness regardless of time of day, then you're going to apply it really anytime. It's a very forgiving hormone, and it's also not the kind of hormone, like if you do it in the morning, it doesn't mean it's going to make you fall asleep. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a sedative. It just helps your body feel better. Okay, so so when do you apply it? Good question, right? So if you're cycling, there's actually 3 different methods of applying. So if you're cycling, the first 2 methods apply. You can, if you are still planning to get pregnant, you want to pretend like it's your cycle, which means that you take 2 weeks off from your period to your ovulation. You do not do progesterone. It's from your ovulations around day 14 until your period. That's when you take progesterone. If you don't care about getting pregnant, but you still start cycling, for example, I still cycle, then you do it for 25 days out of a month. And the 5 days you take a break, which is basically when your period happens, okay? Now, if you are in menopause, right, and you have not had your cycle, your periods have stopped, or if you're having irregular periods, then basically what you're doing is you pick any 25 days. Sorry, let me back up. If you have no period, then you do 25 days on and 5 days off, okay? If you're having irregular periods, that's another story. If you have irregular periods, then you do not want to do progesterone when you're having a period. Okay, let your period finish, and then right after your period, you start taking your progesterone until your next period. Okay, so it will still end up giving you about 25 days. So, Jen, why don't we do a couple of questions before I go on? Because besides progesterone cream, just in case some of you are having reactions to progesterone creams, it's not super common, but it can happen. There's other options I want to tell you about so that you can explore that too. I need to know if your progesterone is synthetic. Absolutely not. Roxanne is asking. It's our progesterone, Progest-Pure, is derived from yams, and it's really nice and clean, meaning, if you're super, super sensitive, it does have a tiny bit of scent, but I can even barely, we have a tiny bit of essential oils in here in order to kind of round up the smell of the cream because of the different oils, but it's really not like, oh, it's lavender and I smell like, like a lavender bush, nothing like that. So super clean. We don't use any phthalates, mineral oils, any synthetic fragrances, and so on and so forth. So really nice and clean. I take a lot of pride in making clean products. Roxanne is asking, are there any side effects? So some women can experience it. Look, let me put it this way. It's like the same thing with taking an herb, And let me give you an example of one herb that actually helps to build up your progesterone naturally, called chasteberry. Chaste, like CHASTE berry, also known as Vitex. And, in Germany, Vitex is like the first go-to herb that's given to women who show deficiency in progesterone. And so that was going to be one of my recommendations. If you are sensitive to cream, like if this gives you migraines, if this gives you, anxiety, right? It happens once in a while. We get customers who tell us that. Then chasteberry might be your great option. I personally can't do chasteberry, I just can't. So 2 things happen. One is I get mid-cycle spotting, and I try different doses and going, of course, lower, and I still get mid-cycle spotting, which I never do otherwise. And then the other thing that starts happening is that my ovaries start throbbing, literally. Bad news, bad sign. I should stay away from chasteberry. It's just not my herb. And so, we need to respect the fact that, and I'm glad you're asking that question, because it's if anyone tells you that, this one supplement, one herb, one food that can fix everything, run the other side, because that's just not true. That is just not true. There's always going to be someone who might have a reaction to the best product out there, the best herb, the safest herb, right? So what are the side effects? Some women can get anxiety. Other women can get migraines. Those are the basic 2 biggest things that we've been hearing from women if they do have a side effect. Of course, 95% of our customers will say how it has fixed their life, right? But then there's this 5% or 3% or whatever it is. They'll be like, we have a really good refund policy, you guys. So if this is not working for you, just tell us. And Jen and the team are going to refund you or give you store credit, and you can either put it towards another purchase or we just send you back the money. What's the name of the cream? So the name of the cream is Progespure cream, and you can get it in our store on willena.com. Jen, should we post the link to willena.com? That might be helpful. I want to take this question here. Rebecca is saying, gives me anxiety sometimes. Yeah. So a couple of things you can try. One thing we have found is that women who tend to have a reaction to progesterone more so than any other women tend to have a problem with candida as well, yeast overgrowth. Another thing that we have found is women who are having really poor adrenal function and just a lot of stress can also react poorly to progesterone. So that's something to just to be mindful of. Susan is asking, what if you have had a hysterectomy? Great question. So I'm going to give you some natural solutions for boosting your progesterone levels, but if you don't have your uterus, then it's not going to help. And by the way, can I also just mention here that, a lot of the time we are told by our doctors, like, oh, we're just removing the uterus, your ovaries are going to stay there, right? And then after a year, this person is feeling like, man, like my hormones are so off. Hormones have taken the best out of me. And the reason why that happens is because the blood supply to the ovaries comes in through the uterus. So when you remove the uterus, the ovaries over time are going to die. And then they're going to not produce your estrogen anymore, right? And neither are going to produce progesterone. And so that's where, it's kind of tricky. But anyway, so progesterone cream is amazing for women with hysterectomies. The standard protocol, medicine protocol, does not include it. I talked about at the beginning of this call. And so, a lot of times women are put on estrogen. Estrogen needs to be balanced out with progesterone, because otherwise you're giving yourself estrogen dominance after hysterectomy, or you can have estrogen dominance in menopause. By the way, we're going to be talking about, can you have estrogen dominance in menopause? And the answer is yes. We're going to talk about it next week. And how is that possible? That I'm going to explain the biology behind it. What about progesterone only birth control pills? I went back on that to get out of a control period to get my period under control. I did not find any relief in 6 months of doing that. Blurry vision, was told that's not common with it. So Sarah is asking. Yeah, it's a good question. So progesterone only birth control pills are synthetic progesterone, which is called progestins, and which are derived from mare urine, so pregnant horse urine. And so there is, just in terms of efficacy, don't have the same efficacy as what you get from natural bioidentical progesterone. And let me just clarify that when I say bioidentical progesterone, it is progesterone that is derived from yams. Now, it doesn't mean that, you can, like Grace and Frankie, the series on Netflix, when Frankie meets a farmer, he's like a yam farmer or something, and then she goes and makes these creams to help women with hot flashes and stuff. Well, that's Hollywood's interpretation of hormones, because in reality, yam actually needs to still be converted in a lab to match your receptor. So those kiddo games, like when you've got this game when you have these different holes, and then there's these pieces, and the kiddo has to like match the shape and put the toy into the different shape, right? So stars and rectangular things and whatever, right? And so think of progestin. It's like it almost fits, but not really. And the whole idea behind bioidentical progesterone and hormones is that they fit perfectly into your receptor. And for that reason, there is, the part of the reason why hormone replacement therapy got such a bad rap, you guys, is because of the study that was done. I'm sure you've heard about it, and where it was actually progestin that was used, that was a big contributing factor towards strokes and heart diseases, cardiovascular diseases, and cancers in women. And so that's the reason why they stopped the study, right? It was like a huge study, 25,000 women participated in it, and they shut it down after 5 years and so progestin was the hormone. Unfortunately, that study got like a whole, because it lacks context, right? We lack context a lot of the time in today's communications, where suddenly, black tea is bad and matcha tea is bad, and like everything, you can find something on the internet about something always being bad or seemingly good with lacking context. And so anyway, so when it comes to bioidentical hormones, is very different from progestin, and you will not get the same side effects. What else do we have? Can men use your progesterone as well? No, they don't. Men have progesterone as well, but it's significantly lesser than in women. And so this is actually one really good question, and that is, when you apply your progesterone in places where you might be touching your husband, allow for at least 20 minutes for it to get absorbed before you get intimate, right? Or touch each other, or apply it in places, like I was saying, like the back of your neck. It depends what you're doing. Like, okay, I take it back, but like your feet, but then again, if you're intimate, the feet will also touch. So anyway, we can go on here, exploring all your different, intimate positions and situations. But anyway, so use your judgment. Like I said, soft versus, when you put it on, maybe on your tummy and put on a shirt and stuff, right? You're just cuddling. That's not a big deal. Yeah. Okay. Let me just take a quick look on Instagram, Jen, so that we don't ignore Instagrammers. Can the cream help with inflammation and swelling? I wouldn't say that is like a direct relationship, although I will tell you one interesting thing. People with TBI, traumatic brain injury, actually progesterone is one of the protocols that's used for TBI. So for brain inflammation and swelling, yes, but like just generally, no. And we're actually going to be talking about inflammation next week, you guys. Connection between inflammation and pain and hormones and allergies and the whole thing with allergies. Because we're going into the allergy season now. Can you use it in the morning and then before bed 2 times a day? Yes, you can. My recommendation is to start off, like, if you're using from us, it's 25 milligrams as a starting dose. Start off with 25. Don't go higher than that. If your symptoms within a couple of weeks don't subside, then go up a little bit higher to like maybe 6 pumps. And then, I've been doing now 50 milligrams and I'm feeling amazing. How many pumps a day on luteal phase do if you're trying to get pregnant. So you need to work with your doctor, because for that you need to know your progesterone levels need to be in a certain range to get pregnant. And so for that will be a good idea for you to get actually tested. Does it have, how long does the bottle tend to last? Jen, do I remember how long does it last? Is it a couple of months? $60 days. Yes, that's based on 25 milligrams. If you're doubling that, then it's going to last you for 30 days. So let's talk a little bit about, I'll get to questions in just a second. I want to talk a little bit more about some of the nutrients you can use. So for those of you, if you guys feel like supporting us, oh, by the way, I forgot to say that with the progesterone cream right now until the 18th, so you got a couple more days, we're giving away our vitamin C complete, which is food-derived vitamin C that's worth like $38, you guys, and that's for free with the purchase of a cream. But so if you feel so compelled to support us, I very much appreciate that, and thank you for the support and the love. But if for whatever reason you've tried progesterone creams before, or we also have an oil in our store. I personally prefer the cream just because of the application. Oil, I just feel like it's like, I don't know, just dripping everywhere. But I want to give you a couple of nutrients that you can incorporate in order for your body to start naturally producing progesterone. And that's only applicable to women who still have the uteruses. Okay, if you have after hysterectomy, that this is not going to work. So I've already mentioned chaseberry. That's a really amazing one. And then the second thing is, vitamin C action. That's part of the reason why we're giving that away, is that you can support your body in your native progesterone production. Vitamin C, starting off with 600 milligrams a day, going on to what's called bowel tolerance, meaning you go up until you get a loose stool. Different people have different vitamin C deficiencies. And so it would be really good for you to determine of like, what is the, where are you? And your bowels will tell you. So that's one way you could do that. Another compound that is really helpful for your own native progesterone production is zinc, actually. So a lot of people know zinc. It's like, oh, it helps my immune system. Perfect. It does. And it helps with gut integrity. So if you're dealing with things like leaky gut, IBS, IBD, zinc is definitely should be part of your protocol. 30 to 50 milligrams, not more than that a day, helps with the gut integrity. And the third one, which a lot of people don't realize, that actually helps you with progesterone production. So that's another really great one. The next compound you could try is vitamin E. We don't carry vitamin E in our store, but you can find from some good brands like Thorne or Pure Encapsulations or Designs for Health or, Zymogen. Those are some of the great brands that you can easily find online for vitamin E. So those are some of the natural ways of increasing progesterone that can really be helpful for you guys. Let me just take a quick look. I want to just check something. Jen, am I missing anything about we actually have an article. Jen, let's post the article on the 10 natural ways to boost progesterone. So that could be a good one. Zinc, magnesium. So that's another one. Oh yeah, and vitamin B6. A couple of more actually. Let me give you more pointers. Magnesium glycinate can be a really great one. We like glycinate at Wellena because it's got the highest bioavailability, or malate, but can be a little bit energizing. Another great one is vitamin B6, actually, for all your hormones. The only trick with vitamin B6 is to use it in a P5P form and not B6. So P5P is the active form of vitamin B6 that does not need to be converted. If you have ever experimented with vitamin B6 and gone up the dose until you have dream recall, so one of the ways of knowing you might be low on vitamin B6 is when you have a very poor dream recall. And so then, I did the experiment a few years ago, and I was taking higher amounts of vitamin B6. And then suddenly my hand started getting these ticks, right? So then I knew neurologically something was really off. So I backed off. What I didn't know back then was that I was taking B6 in a, and I was depending on my body to convert. For some of us, I'm sure there's a genetic component to it as well, just don't convert as well. So look for P5P as the active form of vitamin B6. Okay, so those are the major ones. So chasteberries, zinc, vitamin E, vitamin C, magnesium, and now we also have here our vitamin B6 in P5P form. One more last thing I want to mention is, have you guys heard of seed rotation? So seed rotation can be really helpful too. And so some women have incredible results in raising basically the whole idea is using seeds for the first 2 weeks of your cycle, if you're still cycling, to boost your estrogen levels. And that happens through flaxseed and pumpkin seeds. And then you switch over to sesame seeds and sunflower seeds for the rest of the cycle. And that helps you boost your progesterone levels. And so some women have incredible results with that. It just takes a little bit longer, for it to kick in. So you need like a couple of months to really feel the difference. I personally just started going back to, excuse me, I'm just going to take a sip. I started taking flaxseed, couple of ground tablespoons a day to help me raise my estrogen level. I need to retest on Dutch, but I suspect my estrogen is kind of going down a little bit. One of the ways I know is that I don't feel as sharp in my brain, meaning like I'm looking for words, like sometimes I'm forgetting words, I'm forgetting names. And it's not like, like dementia sort of forgetting, but it's more of, vocabulary that you normally will just flow and you have an ease of speaking and ease of expressing things. I'm suddenly looking for words. And so that's a classical estrogen, low estrogen symptom. So I prefer not to go on any bioidentical estrogen yet. I'm 50, I just turned 50. So I'm going to try to correct it with estrogen, my estrogen with flaxseed, a couple of tablespoons a day. And I'll be happy to report in a month or so and see how that's working. I tried correcting my progesterone levels through, like I was telling you guys, the zinc and vitamin C and stuff like that. And it just wasn't working. So that's the reason why I basically went ahead and started using our progesterone. And so that has made a huge difference. Okay, Jen, why don't we do a couple of questions before wrapping up? A hot flash is a sign of estrogen dominance. Yes, it can be. And it can be in a context of that your estrogen is too high compared to progesterone. So basically adding progesterone can potentially help. However, Nazreen, if you go to hormonesbalance.com, our website, our blog side of them, our resources, and just enter hot flashes. There's articles I've written about hot flashes, because hot flashes got, for some women, just correcting progesterone estrogen balance is enough. For other women, it's not. And like when I had hot flashes, that was because of food sensitivity. So things like having too much coffee, alcohol. For some women, is blood sugar balance. So I would say inflammation and blood sugar levels are most of the time even more important than progesterone correction. And so that's something that, you can find out more from that article. And yeah, just give you guys heads up, we're working on a hot flash product that's going to be launching probably in a 3 to 4 months time. So like around summertime or just after summer. Okay. Do you need to take breaks from applying? Some say because your body will stop producing its own. So like when I mentioned, you do 25 days and then 5 days off. The thing is that you can feel free to experiment. I mean, meaning that stop taking progesterone for a month or so, and just see how you feel. And so for some women, it's actually really interesting that we recalibrate and that like the body is, or maybe it's because you still have enough progesterone from the previous applications. But some women just don't need it, but other women just feel the lack of progesterone pretty quickly, and they need to get back on it in order to have good quality of life. Lisa is asking, 62 and postmenopausal with progesterone cream be helpful. Very much so, Lisa. Very much so. Is it possible to take too much of the cream? Great question. So yes, you can. There is such a thing as too much of a good thing, right? Yes. So when you are experimenting, let's just say, like in our with our cream, 25 milligrams. You started with 25 milligrams. It's 4 pumps, and it's like you still can't sleep, and and you still got hot flashes, and you feel like not much. It's not much of a difference. Try going up to 6 pumps and then 8 pumps, maybe 4 pumps in the morning, 4 pumps at night, right? And see whether that makes a difference. Maybe you need 50 milligrams of magnesium as compared to 25. How do you know it's too much, right? Because you also don't want to go too much, and it's possible to overdose. And the answer is that you start feeling foggy, kind of sleepy, and lethargic, and very sort of unenthusiastic to do anything. So it's kind of just lethargic. So yeah, so that's your sign that you need to back off. I had a complete hysterectomy at 48. I'm now 60. Can I begin taking the cream? Could it help me if I do it right? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Donna, especially if you feel comfortable, Donna, do you want to tell us a little bit about what are the symptoms you were experiencing? Because really, to me, the most important thing when it comes to taking a bioidentical hormone is to make sure that you're not taking it just because Magdalena is talking about it, but you're taking it because it's going to help your symptoms, it's going to change the quality of your life, it's going to improve how you show up. And I mean, I don't need to tell you, I think that's one of the hardest things about, going through menopause and perimenopause is that we suffer so much as women, and there's so few tools for us to really are available, including our physicians. And and then the quality of our life suffers, right? And then so we get these terms like she's such a bitch, right? And women in menopause are so difficult, right? And it's our bloody hormones. And the fact that when we don't sleep, it's like it makes things so much, everything is so much worse. I mean, I don't need to tell you that if you're having a bad night's sleep and during the day you don't show up the same way versus someone who had an amazing night's sleep, right? And so it's just yeah. So absolutely, and go by your symptoms. I start bleeding period when I take progesterone. I know I need it though. Yeah, Cindy. So make sure that you're using bioidentical progesterone, not progestin, right? And and maybe start off with a lower dose. That's another method. If you try a different method, if you try a lower dose and you try bioidentical progesterone, making sure that is that. If that doesn't work, then chasteberry might be a really great option for you, right? Can I take calcium diglucarate together with progesterone cream? Yes, you can. Calcium diglucarate is going to help to how the estrogen is metabolized, but it's not going to interfere with progesterone. So yeah, they're very complementary to each other. How much vitamin E? I don't remember offhand right now because I don't really work that much with vitamin E. If you go on our website, hormonesbalance.com, and look at progesterone, the progesterone 10 ways to naturally increase progesterone, Donna, there is a whole section there on vitamin E. Otherwise, with vitamin E, I'll just follow also the instructions on the bottle. Okay, let's do one more. How can I know what hormones are high or low? I have PCOS. So you know that through few ways. Your thyroid, if you're asking about thyroid hormones, you can get that tested through. So blood is good for thyroid, you guys, by the way, because I was just bashing, blood testing when it comes to steroid hormones like progesterone, estrogen, cortisol, DHEA, testosterone. But when it comes to your thyroid, actually, blood work is the way to go. Your blood sugar levels, you can also get that tested through blood. But when it comes to steroid hormones, I highly recommend to do Dutch, DUTCH. The only thing with Dutch is that you need to have a practitioner interpret results for you. Okay, so that's one consideration here, because it's not meant for patients to be reading the results themselves. And yeah, so those are, those are some of the things that you can do for testing. Okay, hey you guys, I'm trying to preserve my voice, and I'm already beginning to feel like a little bit sore in my lungs. For those of you who don't know, I'm recovering from COVID lungs, and so I've got a very, very large protocol. If you see my countertop is just like, woo! And I'm nebulizing and I'm doing a lot of different things. I feel like half the day is spent taking care of my lungs. My lungs are my weak point. And so it's as much as I got over COVID in like 5 days and recovered pretty quickly, it's really sitting in my lungs. But I think I'm sounding better today and I'm feeling better. So anyway, I hope this is all helpful for you. And for those of you who are going to be trying out the progesterone cream, make sure you do it before the 18th so you get a free bottle of our vitamin C, which is obviously great for the immune system, is great for your not just immune system, but also you guys, your collagen. It depends on this vitamin C as well to be produced natively. Not, doing collagen powder is one thing, but also, we can do things to support our own bodies, right? To produce our own collagen. Don't forget that. And vitamin C is essential in producing your own collagen. So thanks so much, everyone, for being here today. I hope this is helpful. It has empowered and educated you today. And I will see you guys next week. And we're going to be talking about estrogen dominance in menopause, something that a lot of people think that's impossible. How can I be dominant in estrogen when I'm in menopause and my estrogen has tanked? But it's possible. And I'll tell you more about it next week. Thanks, everyone, for being here today. And I'll talk to you soon.